for the latest recruiting in
Sooner fans. Crafted for SEC competition. Every OU fan should own a piece of Sooner magic. Made in America, like it should be. Get your official on-field OU football today.
Hey Sooner Nation, join me Mondays at 7:45 a.m. and Thursdays at 4:45 p.m. exclusively on the Ref. Download the KREF app to listen from anywhere.
Or visit alcok.com today. Experience the difference with Dr. B and see the world like never before.
Your dream home is right around the corner, and at Stride Bank, we're here to make it a reality. With competitive rates, personalized service, and streamlined processes, buying your first home or your forever home has never been easier. Let Stride's experienced mortgage team guide you every step of the way from pre-qualification to closing. With local roots and national reach, Stride Bank is your go-to partner for all your banking needs. Stride Bank, your trusted financial partner since 1913. Find out more at stridebank.com. Stride Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
The fun never stops at Riverwind.
The hottest entertainment.
And the best rewards program in the metro.
Visit us every Friday in September for a Sunset Showdown. Play with your wild card to win your share of $80,000. Your next big win is at Riverwind Casino.
Ever wonder why someone would go to the ends of the earth and leap into the unknown? Maybe a better question is, what are you waiting for? Pacifico is brewed for those who follow their own path. That's living life anchors up.
From the gridiron to the hardwood to the diamond, no one covers the Sooners like we do. If it's Sooner Sports, we have you covered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is the home of Sooner fans.
Hey Jeff, have I told you about the nightmare Jessica had at that big city dealership?
Oh boy, I can only imagine.
It was like something out of a bad movie.
Really? What happened?
Well, she found this amazing deal on a Blazer online at one of those dealerships.
Oh yeah, flashy with all the promises.
Exactly. She was so excited, but when she got there, they hit her with the old bait and switch.
I've been hearing that a bunch lately.
They told her the car she wanted wasn't there, but guess what? It was. They just wanted to sell it for more than the online price. Then they tried to push a completely different vehicle.
Well, tell her to just come out here and see us at Knippelmeyer.
That's what I told her. She said she would, and she wouldn't go anywhere else from now on.
At Knippelmeyer, we don't play games. Our prices are up front, no gimmicks, just good honest deals like we've done for over 60 years. So don't make the same mistake Jessica did. For your next vehicle, come see us in Blanchard, give us a call at 405-485-3333, or check us out on the web at knippelmeyer.com. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
You might know that State Farm agent Cindy Nasher has great service. Cindy is your good neighbor after all. But did you know that State Farm has surprisingly great rates too? Yep, that's right. Along with good neighbor service, State Farm agent Cindy Nasher has surprisingly great rates for everyone in Norman. So call State Farm agent Cindy Nasher at 405-307-0500 for your surprisingly great rates today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.
Coach Stoops here. Join me every week on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Monday morning at 7:45, I'll join the voice of the Sooners, Toby Rowland, and TJ Perry for the Stoops Review. We'll break down all the action from the weekend, and on Thursday afternoons at 4:45 with Teddy and Tyler on the rush as we get you ready for the weekend slate. It's the best time of year, and you can find me exclusively on the Ref. Download the KREF app today so you listen from anywhere in the world.
The Ref Radio Sports Network is powered statewide by the insurance adjusters at Brown O'Haver. Fire, wind, theft, or tornado, we can help. Call 405-735-5510. Live from the Buffalo Wild Wings Studios, it's time to get locked in to the best Sooner recruiting and football news with Tyler McComas and Parker Thune.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino calling line at 405-329-9000. Text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Tyler McComas and Parker Thune.
One another. We've had negative thoughts and opinions on this football team. But hey, come on. It's a Football Friday. Everyone should be in a good mood. It's a Football Friday, and you have a chance tomorrow to right some of the wrongs offensively that have happened so far in these first 2 weeks. OU's going to roll in tomorrow as a 13.5-point favorite, and maybe, hopefully, we see better offensive production, not in just quarter one, but throughout the entire game. And Parker Thune, as we start off today, and let's just get right to this OU-Tulane game, would it be wrong of me? Because I look at the offense the past 2 weeks and I say, oh boy, they've struggled against lesser opponents, and now they're facing probably the best defense that they've faced up to this point. So logically, you look at this game and say, yeah, this OU offense is going to have maybe a tough time moving the ball again. But is it wrong of me to get my hopes up that 85% of the money is taking Tulane plus 13.5? Everyone locally, everyone nationally seems to think that Tulane is going to cover and cover easily. I just feel like I normally know what happens when everyone is on one side of a wager. Normally Vegas wins out, and they end up being the winner in this whole deal. So maybe that's where my big hope is coming from today, is that everyone is on one side, therefore we're all going to be wrong, and OU's actually going to cover this game easily. Is that flawed or sound? What do you think?
You know what they say, Tyler. If 80% or more of the money is on one team, take the other team. And so, yeah, look, I'm on record with my prediction. I think Oklahoma wins this football game, and I think they cover. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a walk in the park for 60 minutes against Tulane, but I do think this defense matches up well with some of the things that Tulane does well offensively. You have the star power that Tulane lacks, and not to say they don't have good players, but you have legitimate stars and guys like Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman. They're going to have an opportunity to shine tomorrow afternoon. And then I'm counting on a bounce-back game, a get-right game, if you will, for Jackson Arnold. Now, does that mean 450 yards and 5 touchdowns? Not necessarily. It could mean 250 yards and 2 touchdowns and just a really, really clean game in which he makes smart decisions with the football, is willing and able to lean on the run game as well to take some of the pressure off his shoulders. And I expect Oklahoma to be much, much better than they were a week ago against Houston. It's tough to imagine they could play that poorly again, but I anticipate that after having the week to get things corrected on the practice field, dive into the film in the film room, and explore what went wrong, that this is a team that is still talented enough and well coached enough that they're not going to lay 2 eggs in a row.
Well, and the offensive numbers, it won't surprise anyone, but they don't look all that great up to this point through 2 games. 79th nationally in rushing yards, 109th nationally in passing offense, 108th in total offense, and 131st out of 133 in third down conversions. Jackson Arnold's also been sacked 6 times in 2 games. So let's think about it this way from the offense. What's more likely, that the run game finds its groove and really gets going tomorrow, or the passing game really thrives against a Tulane secondary that's maybe a little bit gettable? I mean, if we can sit here today and say that one of those 2 things is going to happen, and hopefully both of those things happen, and this offense really finds a rhythm for the first time this year. But if you could only pick one, what do you think is more likely? The receivers really start to get separation, Jackson Arnold hits on some big plays down the field, or we see Tatum and Sawchuk and Barnes really have a big day on the ground?
You'd hope for both, as you said. I consider it more likely that Oklahoma gets the running game going, just because I think they have to. I think this is the week where you have to. This is the week where you have to get a sense of what your ideal rotation, if you will, timeshare looks like in the backfield, whether it's primarily one guy, whether it's a 50-50 split between a couple guys, whether it's a 3-way split between Sawchuk, Barnes, and Tatum. You got to figure out what the ideal plan of attack is in the backfield this week, and you got to start moving the ball on the ground. So I think there's going to be a concerted effort to do that, especially with Tennessee on tap. And I would figure that, yes, while tomorrow should be a get-right game for Jackson Arnold, it also probably needs to be a get-right game for that Oklahoma backfield as well.
You know, thinking about this game, as we have it all week long, but thinking about it a little bit more today during prep, it's, what's the big storyline for this game? Well, I think it's the entire offense. And if you want to go more specifically than that, it's the quarterback, it's the offensive line, it's the wide receiver. Like from the OU side of things, the biggest stories in this game are all on the offensive side. But you know what? This is going to be a pretty decent test for the defense tomorrow. And I've got confidence that they're going to hold up and put this team in a situation to win the football game. But for everything that they've done well throughout the first two games, you still hear people say, well, it was against Temple. Well, it was against Houston. And okay, that's fair. Like we'll see them against better competition here moving forward. This is by far and away, man, the best quarterback that they're going to face, the best running back that they're going to face, the best set of wide receivers that they're going to face as well. I know that offensive line is the big story, and this isn't the test tomorrow for the OU defense, but it's a pretty good test with what they have at quarterback and the skill position spots.
It certainly is. And you look at a guy like Mario Williams, a guy that Oklahoma is quite familiar with. I think it's easy to say right now that Oklahoma has strong play at the safety spot because they do, but how much have we really been able to glean about Oklahoma's cornerbacks? Yeah, Kenai Walker has a pick. Yeah, Woody Washington should have a pick. That was a very questionable PI call that negated his one-handed interception last week. But out on the perimeter, you would think that Tulane's going to do everything in their power to isolate those matchups and make sure that, let's say it's a guy like Des Malone on Mario Williams. Get Mario Williams the ball on the perimeter as quickly as possible, put him in a true one-on-one situation with a guy like Des Malone, and don't even give Billy Bowman or Robert Spears-Jennings or Peyton Bowen the chance to bracket or blanket a guy like that downfield. Just get the ball out to him quick, let him make plays in the open field. I figure that's probably going to be Tulane's plan of attack. Mekhi Hughes in the running game, they're going to try to get him going. I really don't know how much they're going to be able to against a strong Oklahoma front seven. So the recipe for Tulane offensively, in my mind, is going to be getting the ball out pretty quickly to your best playmakers in the passing game. Mensah's a talented quarterback. He knows what he's doing, generally pretty smart with the football. So can Oklahoma, A, tackle reliably, make sure that short passes remain short passes and not chunk gains because the guy ends up slipping a couple of arm tackles, but B, continue to remain as strong up front against the run as they have these first couple of weeks. Because if they do that, if you make Tulane one-dimensional offensively, that's a recipe for a lot of success.
Great point by one-star recruiting boomer. For the love of God, please let it not be Big 12 officials. I haven't seen the collection of officials tomorrow, but boy, that PI call, who was that on? Woody Washington when he had the interception? I don't know how that could be better coverage. I mean, that's like textbook coverage.
It was
they threw a flag
textbook, man. It was textbook. It was clinical coverage by Woody Washington. He had his eyes on the ball the whole way, tracked it, secured it with one hand. Should have been a game-changing play for Oklahoma, and then, boom, it's gone because Big 12 refs.
Indecisive Sooner says, what is OU ranked nationally defensively? I know they are number one in the country in takeaways with 8. They are number one in the country in turnover margin plus 7. Number one in the country in fumble recoveries with 5. Number one in the country in points off turnovers with 41. And number one in the country in offensive red zone conversion. For what we're saying about the offense, they're actually 8 of 8, number one in the country in red zone conversion. Let me look at where they're at defensively, though, through 2 weeks nationally, total defense-wise.
And that's just hilarious, Tyler, because if you were to tell me, if you were to rattle off all those superlatives, OU's number one in the country in takeaways, in fumble recoveries, in all those categories that you listed, and yet you didn't tell me the results of the first 2 weeks' games, you asked me how I was feeling about Oklahoma's outlook going into the SEC, if you were to just blindly look at those numbers, those statistics, and not look at the actual football that's been played through the first couple of weeks, you would safely conclude, okay, like this is an Oklahoma team that can hold serve with anybody. They'll be able to keep pace with any opponent that they go up against in SEC play. But what nobody really counted on through the first 2 weeks is the struggles that you've encountered offensively that has removed a lot of the luster, I think, from the performance of the defense as a whole. Because in really any other year but this one, if this defense does what it has done through the first 2 games, we're talking a lot about the defense this week.
Yeah,
but that is not the case right now. We're talking a lot about the offense and how shoddy it was last week against Houston and how ineffective it has been at times, especially on third down to this point in non-con play.
It's a total if, but if you want to go with your if, like just based on those numbers, if you would have told us that through 2 weeks before the season, yeah, you think OU rolls to 2 50-point wins. The narrative on this game is completely different if that's the case. Because if OU rolls those first 2 games, you know what we're saying today? Better watch out. This is a classic trap game scenario. Are you kidding me? A good Tulane team coming in that's good enough to beat you, and you got your first SEC game at home prime time against Tennessee next Saturday. You better come out ready to play because this is a trap game scenario. You know what we haven't said all week long? That this is a trap game scenario because I think everyone, including the staff and the team, knows that if they don't show up, they could lose this game.
Well, and I also think nationally, too, there's not even the type of perspective with regard to these two teams that would lend itself to labeling this a trap game. I think nationally, the perspective is that Oklahoma and Tulane aren't all that different from one another in terms of their overall talent level and chemistry through 2 weeks. There are plenty of folks across the country on the national level who believe that Tulane is going to give Oklahoma a fight all the way up until the end and perhaps even win the football game.
And they might. They're more than capable of doing that. Brad from Mustang says, I get it. Houston was the trap game. Yeah. There we go, Brad. There we go. Cherokee Sooner says, guys, I think that this is a trap game scenario. I don't know. That was brilliant by Brad right there. That's expert level thinking, if you ask me. Okay. Let me find, where was Chonky Chuck's text right there? Chonky Chuck says, this defense is really good, but we cannot keep putting them on the field so much and expecting greatness each time. Have to play complementary football on offense. Much different situation than the Riley era. Complementary, man. It's a word that we've been using for at least 3 years now, but this offense, if nothing else, tomorrow's got to take advantages when the defense gives them the ball back in a short field. Didn't do that in the fourth quarter last week.
No, they did not. Boomer Brady says if each player only improves his performance by a play or two, then the entire team's performance will improve a significant amount. A missed block, a drop ball, an errant throw, a holding call, a misassignment, miscommunication, all add up in a football game. Bad or good, those plays will add up.
720, Hickman, Everett, Anderson, and Anthony statuses for tomorrow. You starting to feel good that Nick Anderson at least makes an appearance tomorrow? Even if he doesn't start, just makes an appearance?
To be honest, no. I feel better about Branson Hickman playing right now than I do Nick Anderson based on some of the things I've heard. I don't think it's a guarantee that either one goes. I don't think it's a guarantee that neither one goes. I would consider those two highly questionable for tomorrow. I don't think you will see Troy Everett, and Andrell Anthony is just kind of an enigma right now. You know, you saw him in week 1. He didn't play in week 2. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what's going on there, truly.
Okay, by the way, I am at Jimmy Austin OU Golf Club today in Norman for the 2024 HBC Open. That's right, it's Coach Stoops' golf tournament that he has on his birthday week every single year. So I'm out here at Jimmy Austin. Really, really cool events. And I'll tell you how to get involved with he and Coach Schwitzer's foundation as the show goes on. How's your Friday over there at Panera Bread? How's that treating you?
It's been phenomenal so far. Got to talk to Mark from Panera a little earlier on in the show. He's a big OU football guy as well. Talked to him for a few minutes, and the text line was like, Mark knows ball. More of Mark, please. Apparently, some of Mark's insights were very well received on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. But, yeah, it's a beautiful day. I'm sitting outside here in Moore. Traffic to my right, Panera to my left. great place to be on a Friday afternoon. Looking forward to getting out to Deer Creek and Norman North tonight. That's going to be the game that I cover this evening. So, yeah, it's always great when I get to come out here to a phenomenal place like Panera, right here in Moore, very close to my house as well, and get to look forward to covering a game tonight that doesn't require me to drive 5 hours round trip in a single evening.
That's nice. Yeah, that's nice. And we'll get to some recruiting coming up next. Norman is hopping today for all of you making your way into a town right now or later this evening. It's Parents Weekend, I believe. I had lunch with loyal listener Chase in Orange County earlier this afternoon. We were out on Campus Corner, and people all over the place. Felt like a game day on a Friday afternoon here on an OEC Fiber Football Friday. Really cool. 2:30 tomorrow on ESPN, it'll be OU and Tulane. And like I said, OU still listed as a 13.5-point favorite over the Green Wave. We'll get to recruiting, more on this football game tomorrow, and a look across the country in college football. Keep it locked on the Ref. We're the home of Sooner fans.
Hey, Ref Army, this is Dustin. Sooner fans, show your Sooner pride. Crafted for SEC competition. Every OU fan should own a piece of Sooner magic. Made in America, like it should be. Get your official on-field OU football today.
Hey, Sooner Nation, join me Mondays at 7:45 a.m. and Thursdays at 4:45 p.m. exclusively on the Ref. Download the K-Ref app to listen from anywhere.
Our bodies, because feeling full can sound like this.
How did the interview go? I did it! I got the job! I can't believe it!
And like this.
Mom, I got first place at the science fair with my volcano project.
That's amazing, sweetie. Congratulations.
Because when people are fed, futures are nourished, and everyone deserves to live a full life. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/act now. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
I would encourage all parents to let their child be screened through the newborn screening, because as a mom, I didn't even know that congenital hypothyroidism was a disorder or a disease. I'd never heard of it, still don't hear of it very often. So without that newborn screening, we would have not known that he had something wrong. And without that diagnosis, we would have not known to medicate, and his life would be very different.
For more information, visit oklahoma.gov/health/newborn screening.
The Sooners are joining the SEC with a redesigned, handcrafted, and customized Nike Vapor Elite exclusively from Big Game Football Factory Football to commemorate their inaugural SEC season. To connect to the game you love on a deeper level, to get truly game day ready, you need the best quality football designed by and for your Sooners. How do you own the only official on-field Sooner football? Go to BigGameUSA.com/KREF and get your piece of Sooner history today.
It's been said that when someone you love has Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's.
The Parkinson's Foundation knows that the disease doesn't just affect the diagnosed. It affects everyone who supports and helps care for them.
If you have questions, the Parkinson's Foundation has answers.
We can help you understand the disease
and give you tips for living a better life.
Find your answers at parkinson.org or call 1-800-473-4636. The Parkinson's Foundation. Better lives together.
Hey, I'm Reba McEntire. Growing up in Oklahoma, I had big dreams of becoming a successful country music singer. But I also knew the odds were against me and that I needed an education to fall back on. Studying never got in the way of my dreams. In fact, school gave me lots of opportunities I wouldn't have had otherwise with my career. Please stay in school and try your best. You never know where a good education might take you. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
Mike Steele here for Lasher Home Comfort Systems, your trusted home comfort experts in the Oklahoma City metro area. Tim Lasher and his team have more than 130 years of combined experience. They recognize a significant number of homeowners live with inadequate home comfort systems. They specialize in diagnosing your home system issues while providing more efficiency and reducing your utility costs. As an authorized dealer of American Standard, Tim can service your residence or business. Call Tim and his team at 405-579-3113. Lasher Home Comfort Systems.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, Do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that. Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Locked in with McComas and Thune, live on the ref for the home of Sooner fans. It's an OEC Fiber Football Friday. And a couple of news items to pass your way. First, Patty Gasso, who's getting a statue here in a couple of hours at Loves Field, just right down the street where I'm at Jimmy Austin OU Golf Club. Patty Gasso received an historic raise today. OU Board of Regents approved salary increase to $1.9 million this season for Patty. Patty's going to make $1.9 million this upcoming season and then $2 million the following year. Wow. Awesome for Patty Gasso. Her assistants, Jen Roche and JT Gasso, bumped up to $300,000 each as well. And then on the baseball side, Skip Johnson gets a contract extension through 2029, a $1 million salary this year. That is bumped up to $1.2 million in 25-26, then 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. So big time there for Skip Johnson, big time for Patty Gasso, and yeah, that whole ceremony is going to get started in about 90 minutes over at Loves Field. Pretty cool stuff there. Rivals does this every single Friday of the football season. They have the 10 biggest visits happening this weekend, and OU has a visitor that made the top 5. Jake Krull is the 5th biggest visits this week, according to Rivals. 4-star in the 2026 class, defensive end, 6'3", 230, out of IMG in Florida, the number 61 player nationally. And here's the first sentence. Krull plays like Brent Venables coaches. I'd say that's a pretty good start.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said Jake Krull plays like Brent Venables coaches is what Rival said.
I love that. Apologies. I'm interacting with fans out here at Panera as they shuttle in and out. It's been an awesome day. Getting to meet and engage with many Sooner fans that have come out here to Panera. But, yes, to your point, I got the chance to watch Jake Krull at the Rivals 5-star in June. What's interesting about him is that physically he is not overwhelmingly impressive. He does have long arms. That stands out about him. He has long arms. But he's not much taller than 6'2". 6'3" is probably a bit generous. So we're talking a guy that's kind of cut from the same cloth as R. Mason Thomas, physically speaking. But when I tell you this guy plays with his hair on fire, I mean it, man. And he comes off the edge with a fury. He's nasty. He's heavy-handed. He's angry in the way that he plays the game. And he just wins. He wins. And there's a reason why he's at IMG Academy. There's a reason why he's making plays for IMG Academy, despite his limited or perhaps, I guess, less than prototypical physical stature. I'm a huge fan of Jake Krull. I think he will wind up being a consensus top 100 player in the country because he is that talented.
Says he plays like a dog let out of a cage, flies off the edge, loves the physical part of the game, and that is a Venables kind of guy. More than 40 schools have already offered, and there are some standouts as the Sooners will be one to watch. So as we start to take a peek into the 2026 class, and it does take a bit for everyone to get familiar with the main targets, and we don't know every main target that OU is going to have right now for 2026, but as we're starting to get more and more familiar with players in the 26 class, that's a pretty good start. Like, he plays like Coach Venables coaches, and he's a Venables kind of guy because he flies off the edge, loves the physical part of the game, and plays like a dog let out of a cage. Like, that's one the OU fans that you should keep your eye on there. That's one that you should remember.
Yeah, Jake Krull is going to be a fun football player. There are a bunch of guys that are going to be in town this weekend for the game that are really, really fun football players, high-ceiling guys. And what I think is interesting and something that I'm monitoring right now is that Tank Carrington, the outstanding defensive lineman from Las Vegas, Nevada. It's currently unclear if he's going to make the trip, but there's a lot of interest there. I know he was on the initial visitor list for this weekend, but going to be interesting to track what Oklahoma can do in a recruitment like that one, because I think you trust that the Sooners are going to continue to acquire big-time talent on the edge, at linebacker, in the defensive backfield certainly, but especially as you gear up to hopefully be a contender for years to come in the SEC, one thing you always want to make sure you are stacking is that talent on the interior defensive line. So the likes of Tank Carrington, Deuce Geralds, those type of dudes, those are going to be the recruitments that you watch closely in the 2026 cycle.
Well, speaking of Deuce Geralds, and I'll get to him before we get to an update with Floyd Bucard, who's visiting Miami, and Elijah Melendez. Deuce Geralds is the most important visit happening in college football this weekend, according to Rivals. No, he is not visiting OU. He is visiting South Carolina. The number 12 player nationally, 6'2", 275, like you said, interior defensive lineman out of the state of Georgia. He's the number 1 defensive tackle in the 2026 class. He's got more than a dozen game day visits planned this season, and the word is Oklahoma, Alabama, and Ohio State have been making the biggest impression in his recruitment thus far. It's an uphill climb for South Carolina, but a big win over LSU would be a great start for the Gamecocks, who have recruited elite defensive linemen really well. So, is South Carolina going to be seriously in this race? I don't know. Time will tell. It's just more that, okay, well, here's an update for the number 1 defensive tackle, and early on people are saying, you know, there's maybe 3 standouts thus far, and OU's right there in that group for him.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that's a common thread when you look at this 2026 class, and it's not just limited to Geralds and Carrington and Cruel. You look around, and Miguel Chavis and Todd Bates have made very strong early impressions. Heck, you can extrapolate that ahead to the 2027 class. There's a kid down there in the state of Georgia, KJ Green, who's going to be a top 100 talent in the nation, who has out and said Oklahoma is his early leader. That kid has had a Georgia offer. He's had the Georgia offer for longer than he's had the Oklahoma offer, and yet he visited Oklahoma at the end of July, and that visit went so well, he had no bones about saying, yeah, Oklahoma's my number 1 right now. So Chavis and Bates, man, they're making an impact on the recruiting trail. And admittedly, I think the one thing that folks want to see from Chavis's position group right now is continued development. They want to see those guys making an impact on the field on Saturdays. And it's kind of tough right now because there have been a lot of teams for the last season and a half that have max protected against Oklahoma and made it difficult for those defensive ends to get home with the sack totals. But Chavis and Bates continue to do outstanding work on the recruiting trail, continue to stack talent, and continue to retain talent as well. And that bodes well for Oklahoma as they get deeper and deeper into membership in the SEC.
Floyd Bucard, 4-star defensive tackle commits, will reportedly be at Miami this weekend. And, yes, we've already talked a couple of times about the whole no-visit policy that OU has. But apparently, obviously Miami has been in contact with him. But several schools have tried to circle back, despite him committing to OU recently. Miami and Colorado are 2 notable teams that have tried to circle back with Floyd Bucard. So he'll take the visit to Miami this weekend, and then I'm kind of interested here moving forward. Does he take any other visits that are not OU outside of Miami? And, 2, I also found it interesting that Brandon Drum last hour was, kind of essentially saying that, Miami's interested, but how interested are they really with Floyd Bucard? I found that comment very interesting.
Yeah, well, and that's because that at the outset, when Bucard was working towards a decision in July, Miami wasn't really pressing all that hard. Now, I think they're going to because the 2025 class is weak for them on the interior of the defensive line. So I think they're going to start ramping up. It was a little bit odd that they weren't pushing all that hard for Bucard at the time. Kind of felt like, okay, maybe they have their sights set a little bit higher on some even more elite talents at defensive tackle. But at this point in time, right, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. The U has a lot of deeply rooted connections there at Miami Central, and if there's a talented football player that attends that high school, more often than not, they're going to wind up at the University of Miami. So I would expect them to make a harder push this time around for Floyd Bucard. Maybe the reason why they didn't push as hard initially is because they kind of knew they could play the long game. I don't know, but what I do know is Miami's not going to go away. in this one.
Yeah. 785, State of Kansas. Chavis has a commit in the 27 class already, right? In Zane Rowe? Yes, that is correct. Very, very good player in the 2025 class. I believe he's listed like 6'5", 225 right now. 2027 kid. But, yes, that's their lone commit right now in the 27 class. Las Vegas Sooners says, gentlemen, I, too, am headed down to OU this afternoon. Looking forward to seeing my daughter, hopefully catching up with you all tomorrow. And as an FYI, my daughter gets to go to the event today. Tried to explain her just how special it's going to be. Coach G being the and it ends there. I'm going to guess Coach G being the GOAT is maybe what it means, talking about Patty Gasso. But, yeah, that's going to be a really cool ceremony coming up at 4 o'clock today. 918, any word if Cortez Mills is sticking with the Sooners? No one around here that covers recruiting seems to think that Cortez Mills is going to be on this class on signing day. It's kind of what I gathered.
Yeah, it is the longest of long shots right now because we all understand at this point what happened last week, right? Mills gave Oklahoma the indication he wasn't going to go to Lincoln. He goes to Lincoln anyway. We know the visit policy, and, the visit policy isn't – it can be flexible. The OU staff has been flexible with it in the past, and it's important to distinguish that it feels that as though most folks' perception of the visit policy is that if you go visit somewhere else, you get your scholarship yanked, OU's not going to take you anymore, you better go find another spot. That's not really the case. It's more so that they just don't consider you committed, and they'll continue recruiting for the spot that you currently occupy in technicality, and they'll recruit over you within your own class. But they're not going to just say, okay, screw it, you can go somewhere else, we're done here. It kind of feels like that might end up being what happens, though, with Cortez Mills based on how everything went down with the Nebraska visit.
Doesn't seem like there's anything new with four-star linebacker Elijah Melendez, who, committed to Miami, decommitted from Miami this past weekend or 2 weekends ago. Looks like a second trip to Auburn since decommitting from Miami is on deck for Melendez. And essentially it's, look, OU's been in pursuit, but Auburn's the favorite, and it would take at least a game day visit to OU for Auburn not to be the pick here. So that's kind of what we've said now for, the past week or so, is not that OU's totally out of it with Elijah Melendez, but Auburn's the favorite, and we're going to need to see Elijah Melendez on campus before, at least I seriously believe that OU would be looked at as the favorite or a real chance to get him over Auburn.
Yeah, you can't be too terribly optimistic about Elijah Melendez right now until he shows up on campus. It obviously helps that Auburn is dealing with a bit of a tempest right now after losing to Cal last week and now having switched quarterbacks from Peyton Thorne to redshirt freshman Hank Brown. So all of that is working in your favor. Now you just got to get Melendez to Oklahoma. If you can get him on a game day visit, you can show off the environment. I mean, clearly you don't have to win the football game because even if you lose, at least you didn't lose to Cal. So just get him there, and at that point, OU has more than a puncher's chance.
Man, I think Peyton Thorne was a question mark going into the year for Auburn for sure. But it's been 2 weeks, and he's already been replaced as the starting quarterback. And I guess that happens when you throw 4 picks in the loss to Cal like he did. But this is a big move from Hugh Freeze. We'll see if this gets the Auburn offense going or not. But, man, they have not been a good passing offense as a program since when? I mean, even Bo Nix really struggled there at times. It's hard to think back to when you thought of a prolific offense throwing the football like – It's hard to think back exactly when Auburn's been that the last time for a consecutive year.
Well, Auburn as a program has just been incredibly inconsistent as far as wins and losses go, dating all the way back to their national championship season when Cam Newton was on campus in 2010. Ever since then, and yes, they did appear in the national championship once again in 2013, but it's been up and down, peaks and valleys for Auburn ever since. So, with a guy like Elijah Melendez, all you really have to do is sell him on the belief that there's going to be, A, a sense of consistency at Oklahoma, and B, more of a sense of genuine relational investment, development, not just as a football player, but as a human being, and convince him that, okay, if you want to be loved on, if you want to make sure that you're supported long term. Whether or not football works out for you beyond the collegiate level, Oklahoma is a much better place for you than a spot like Auburn. And OU goes down there to the Plains on September 28th, so you'll be able to gauge very soon here how those two teams match up in a head-to-head sense. Early thoughts, Tyler? I like Oklahoma in that game.
If they could just get the offense going a little bit in the next 2 weeks, and I know, I mean, we've heard how tough it is to play at Auburn, and I'm sure it'll be really loud that day, but golly, man, if OU could just get the offense going a little bit, I think that you can comfortably say that they're the better team on paper. Auburn's strength is on the defensive side, but I think OU's better than Auburn defensively. But that'll still be a tough game. Still going to be a tough game to go out there and win in your first SEC road game. Quick rundown of the 2025 rankings. I've got all the SEC schools here. Bama's got the number 1 class in the SEC with a number 2 national rating. LSU is at 3 nationally. Texas at 4, Auburn at 5, Georgia at 6, Tennessee at 7, Oklahoma at 8. Then you have A&M at 11, Missouri at 16, Ole Miss at 19, Arkansas at 27, Kentucky at 30, South Carolina at 32, Florida. The Florida Gators all the way back at 33, Mississippi State at 43, Vanderbilt at 86. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Final segment of Locked In with McComas and Thune coming up next.
Sooner fans, show your Sooner pride. Crafted for SEC competition. Every OU fan should own a piece of Sooner magic. Made in America, like it should be. Get your official on-field OU football today.
Hey, Sooner Nation, join me Mondays at 7:45 a.m. and Thursdays at 4:45 p.m. exclusively on the Ref. Download the KREF app to listen from anywhere.
At Primrose Funeral Service, we have been compassionately serving families for over 80 years. Do your loved ones a favor by pre-planning your funeral and cemetery arrangements. With pre-planning, Primrose can help eliminate the difficult decisions at a difficult time, because nobody should plan for a loss at the same time they are experiencing one. Our sincere commitment is to make things a little easier for you and your family. So contact Primrose Funeral Service at 405-321-6000 or visit them online at primrosefuneralservice.com.
Did the recent storms damage your home and roof? Call All American Roofing today. All American Roofing has been repairing and replacing roofs for over 40 years and is a second-generation locally owned roofing company. They are also a Google guaranteed contractor and offer free inspections. Our roofers are GAF Master Elite contractors with a BBB A+ rating. Call All American Roofing today at 405-787-0400. All American Roofing, the best roofing company in Oklahoma. 405-787-0400.
There are trucks, then there's the truck. GMC Sierra, with available features like the V8 engine, the ultimate luxury interior, and of course, the available world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra, not just any truck, the truck. GMC's continued commitment to professional-grade engineering is on full display at your Oklahoma GMC dealers. Come take a test drive today and see for yourself. We are professional-grade GMC.
Hey, life doesn't stop when cancer starts. After diagnosis, treatment is vital. But for some, just getting there, to appointments, chemo, or radiation, is a major challenge. You can change that. Volunteer to give rides with the American Cancer Society Road to Recovery program. Driving for a few hours of your day can make a life-saving difference for someone with cancer. Visit cancer.org/drive to learn more.
Snakes, zombies, sharks, heights, speaking in public. The list of fears is endless. But while you're clutching your blanket in the dark, wondering if that sound in the hall was actually a footstep, the real danger is in your hand, when you're behind the wheel. And while you might think a great white shark is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward, don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is Peggy Doviak, and I opened DM Wealth Management because of a horrible experience that my mother had with a stockbroker. I wanted to give people an alternative, a place they could go to understand their money, to know why investment decisions were made the way they were, and to create a financial plan that would help them meet their goals. Most of all, I wanted to help them plan their prosperity. Call me at 405-329-8884 or dmwealth.com.
The Mont invites you to come by and enjoy our high-quality food and drinks in our historic atmosphere. The Mont has won numerous awards, including Best Restaurant in Norman, Best Appetizer for our great queso, Best Exotic Drink for the original swirl, the Best Patio Dining for our beautifully landscaped patio. Come see the Town Tavern OU football scoreboards dating back to 1947. We'll see you at the Mont on the corner of Boyd and Classen, or call us at 329-3330.
Segment locked in with McComas and Thune, live on the ref for the home of Sooner fans. I'm at Jimmy Austin OU Golf Course for the 2024 HBC Open. That's Coach Stoops' golf tournament. And we are we're supporting a lot today. We're supporting the HBCChampionsFoundation.com, which, by the way, if you go to HBCChampionsFoundation.com, they have a lot of cool items that you can buy, such as a Bob Stoops autograph canvas, Bob Stoops limited edition collage. They've got autograph, things on there from Coach Switzer and Coach Stoops. Barry Switzer autographed 8x10s that are framed on there. Some really cool OU memorabilia. You can own a piece of that and support children's charities at the same time. That is HBCChampionsFoundation.com. Parker is at Panera Bread in Moore. It's our OEC Football Friday. And a reminder, we've got several high school football games for you on krefsports.tv. Norman North and Deer Creek tonight. Parker will be at that one. Broken Arrow and Mustang. Norman and Edmond Santa Fe. Edmond North, Edmond Memorial. Sapulpa and Yukon. And then Moore and Westmore tonight. All on krefsports.tv. Check out the Week 2 Oklahoma high school football action. Who are you going out to see some Grady Adamson? I know OU's got an interest in a Norman North wide receiver. What has you going to Deer Creek tonight for the Deer Creek Norman North game?
Yeah, well, obviously it's a fun matchup at quarterbacks. Grady Adamson committed to Georgia Tech. Owen Eshelman at Norman North committed to South Dakota State. But the main draw is, of course, the Mason James show. He's been outstanding thus far early in his junior year for the Timberwolves. Got to see him preseason in a scrimmage. Have not gotten to see him through the first 2 weeks of the season on the actual gridiron on a Friday night. So excited for that opportunity. I'm expecting a lot of touches for him tonight. And I would think it'll be a lot of fun to see how those two offenses match up with one another. Should be a high-scoring football game if my intuition proves correct.
Yeah, that's a high school that's produced some pretty good players, some really good players at the Big 12 level, right? Charlie Kolar recently, Drake Stoops, of course, last year, and it kind of feels like he's the next one to come out of Norman North that's got a chance to be a really good player. Jordan Evans as well, threw him in there and some others too. And speaking of state of Oklahoma recruiting, I mean, we've only been talking about this for several months, but it did make me happy to see it on a Rivals Fact or Fiction. You were involved in it. Fact or Fiction. The talent pool in Oklahoma is the strongest it's ever been. You remember us talking about this earlier in the year? Like, dang, man, look how many Oklahoma takes that they have. Look how many legit P4 players that the state has this year. This could be as deep of a class in 2025 as we've ever seen. You say fact. Marshall Levinson says fact. We thought that earlier in the year, and nothing that has happened thus far, now we're in the season, makes me change my mind on that. This class, even though Jaden Nickens moves out of state, like you've had someone in that group move out of state, yet I still think this is as deep as a class in the state of Oklahoma has ever been, man.
Absolutely. And, yeah, we all know the big names. Nate Roberts, Elijah Thomas, Tristan Haynes, Trinae Washington, Marcus James, etc. But there are so many P4 football players that I'm not even convinced the majority of this state is aware of. A guy like Deontay Lindsay down in Ada, who's committed to go play defensive back at Texas Tech. A guy like Ashton Cunningham, who flies under the radar, defensive back up at Union High School in Tulsa, who's committed to Boston College. There's P4 talent in the 2025 class all over the state. And, yes, Oklahoma has offered and has successfully gotten committed a multiplicity of those guys. But to me, what really makes the difference are the guys like Adamson, Shaker Reisig, etc., that maybe you don't consider to be OU good, but still have very high developmental potential and are going to make a nice living for themselves at the P4 level, wherever they scatter to the winds.
Yeah. What's the national game that you're most interested in tomorrow? LSU at South Carolina. That's kind of like an elimination game for LSU, man. At least I think it could be. You've got the Georgia at Kentucky. I feel like the Dogs are going to roll in that one. What's the national game that's going to catch your eye the most, you feel like?
I'm really looking forward to this matchup tonight between Kansas State and Arizona. I think that'll be a good football game. I expect the Wildcats to win that one. UNLV in Kansas has definite upset potential. I do like Kansas to get that one done, though. Doesn't change my opinion of UNLV. I'm really, really excited to watch that football team throughout the season, and I think they have double-digit win potential. The other game I'm keeping an eye on tomorrow, and it's an early game, so we ought to get the chance to watch the majority, if not all of it. But that showdown at Skelly Field between Tulsa and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State didn't play great last week, managed to escape with a win. Tulsa almost pulled an upset over Arkansas State a week ago after a very impressive opener for starting quarterback Kirk Francis. I can see that one being a lot closer than people anticipate right now.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's got to get their run game going. And Alan Bowman's a nice quarterback, and he's got some good receivers, and that's great. But if Ollie Gordon is not a consistent factor this year, then Oklahoma State's not going to win that conference or play in that conference championship game where they had 26 rushes for 59 yards last week against Arkansas. I think they'll run for more than that than Tulsa, but you got to think, man, OSU's coming out tomorrow trying to run the rock as much as possible against a Tulsa offense with Kevin Wilson, man. They're capable. They can score points.
Yeah, they sure can. Another team that I'm putting on upset watch tomorrow, number 18 Notre Dame. They got to go to Ross-Ade Stadium, which is very quietly one of the tougher places to play among like the mid-level P4 teams in the nation. Weird stuff happens at Ross-Ade, especially when you go there as a ranked opponent. We've seen it in years past. A team like Ohio State, right, goes there, and I can't remember, was it 2017, 2018? They just got it handed to them by Purdue. So Notre Dame, especially fresh off that loss to Northern Illinois, they got to go back on the road, try to shake back, try to straighten out some of the things that they did poorly a week ago in that home loss to the Huskies. It's not going to come easy against the Boilermakers.
By the way, everyone caught what you did there. You said, I'll take the Wildcats, as if both teams aren't the Wildcats tonight in Manhattan, Kansas. I believe you meant the K-State Wildcats,
I didn't even think about that. I completely spaced on it. That was not intentional. I like Kansas State to win that football game. Let me clarify. I think Kansas State wins that football game.
Pretty risky selection there, and take the Wildcats to win since they're both the Wildcats, says a texter. Cherokee Sooner, which Wildcats, Parker? Christy, I see what you did there, Parker. He expects the Wildcats to win tonight. Did you just say the Wildcats is going to win tonight? Yeah, they're all over you now, what that says. I'm expecting the Wildcats to win too. Eye rolling emoji. Should have just let it go, man. On Monday, regardless, you should have been like, told you so. Could have been I told you so.
That was
but
that was. Go ahead.
Oh, it's not a conference game. It's actually a non-conference game because they already had this one scheduled. But it is going to be that's a big win for either team. And even though it's a non-con game, could give us a better look as to, who the favorite in that conference might be along there with Utah.
Yeah, certainly. It's a wide-open Big 12 this year. Wide-open Big 12. How about that matchup between UCF and TCU, two programs that started the season 2-0? They clash in Amon G. Carter Stadium tomorrow evening. That could be a big early tone setter here in the season for those two programs. So a lot of games. This is week 3 is kind of always this way, but the first week of the college football season where you got a lot of games across the nation that start to carry significant implications, not necessarily in the college football playoff race yet, but more so about the trajectory of each of these teams' seasons.
If you didn't say Notre Dame at Purdue, I was going to say Notre Dame at Purdue because I remember week 1, and Notre Dame goes to College Station and wins, and they flash Notre Dame's schedule on the screen as soon as the game is over. And I had this, Notre Dame has got a really nice path to the playoff for what the rest of their schedule looks like. And we know, I would guess that favoritism is going to be shown more times than not to a program like Notre Dame. So if they're like 11-1, they're certainly in. 10-2, they might be in. So I go from thinking that's the night of week 1 to could this be an elimination game tomorrow for Notre Dame in the college football playoff? Because not only would this put them as a 2-loss team, at best it would put them as a 2-loss team with a home loss to Northern Illinois and a road loss at Purdue. So not the opportunity to play in a conference championship game. They're going to have to be an at-large team. I do think this could be I think this could be an elimination game for Notre Dame tomorrow.
And you just said it. That's the key factor. They don't benefit from having an auto bid. So you have to have a very strong at-large resume if you're in Notre Dame's shoes if you want to make the college football playoff. You have no margin for error the rest of the way. None whatsoever. You lose another game, you're probably on the outside looking in, and you need a lot of things to go your way to even be in that conversation on Selection Sunday. How about another game tomorrow that I'll be keeping a close eye on? 2-0 Memphis visits 0-2 Florida State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's already off the rails there in Tallahassee, but if Mike Norvell's former team comes into Tallahassee and wins, and hey, man, make no mistake about it, I know Florida State is favored, and they had last weekend off, I believe, to get ready for this one. But Memphis is absolutely good enough to beat this Florida State team with that quarterback that FSU has right now. Memphis is, I wouldn't say that they're the best non-P4 team, but they're kind of right there in the mix for maybe one of the 10 best non-Power 4 teams. The point is this, Florida State hasn't played, I think, a single good quarter of football just yet. Memphis can actually go in there and win, and if they do, if you think it's been bad up to this point, oh, buddy, it's going to be terrible if FSU starts off 0-3.
Oh, it'll be terrible for them, but it'll be a glorious day for the rest of us to go peruse Florida State message boards. Man,
yeah,
that's going to be must-see TV if the Noles drop another one. How about the Civil War tomorrow up in Corvallis, number 9 Oregon, visiting Oregon State? Ducks obviously have won both of their first 2 games on the 2024 slate, but have looked less than impressive in doing so. They had to battle past Boise State, and they got more of a run for their money than anybody would have anticipated in Week 1 against Idaho.
Well, and I haven't watched a ton of Oregon this year. I got to catch the fourth quarter of that game last week against Boise State. But Dylan Gabriel statistically has been fine. I think he's been good throughout the first 2 games, so it's not like they're struggling because DG hasn't been any good. Apparently, Oregon can't block anyone up front. Their play in the trenches hasn't been great. And though they haven't been on the level of, a Georgia or an Alabama recently, feels like most years Oregon's like at least solid or you're pretty good in the trenches. Apparently they don't have that this year, and that's a line that is very, very confusing to me because this is Oregon State's Super Bowl. Does it really matter what Oregon State does after this weekend? Probably not. They want to beat Oregon badly, man. And the fact that Oregon struggled and they're a 14-point favorite in this game is like, I don't see it, man. I don't know where that comes from.
Another thing we talked about earlier in the show, Auburn making a quarterback switch, and Hugh Freeze is 1-0 or I should say 0-1 at Auburn against teams from the state of New Mexico. Not great news as the Lobos come to town tomorrow.
They got a prolific little quarterback out there at UNM. At least they've got something to work with. I don't think that Auburn's going to lose that game, but Auburn did lose to the in-state rival of the New Mexico Lobos last year. So, look, it doesn't look like the best slate of college football games in terms of ranked matchups, but we know how this sport works, and you even saw it last week, that some crazy things are going to happen, some big upsets are going to happen, but let's just hope that Norman, Oklahoma isn't one of those games where there's going to be a big upset tomorrow. Let's hope OU cruises and, hey, maybe even covers that 13.5-point spread as well. That will do it for Parker on an OEC Football Friday at Panera Bread in Moore. The Rush is coming up next. Keep it locked on the Ref.